It is good to hear the scripture read from a translation that's different to our ears. We attend differently, and I imagine I will continue to use this translation other times during our worship service. Growing up, I don't know about you, but I loved singing patriotic songs. There are times I still love singing patriotic songs, but I sing them with much more reflection now than I did when I was a child. When I was in third grade in how did I write this? Yeah, when I was in third grade in 1776, I am well preserved. Oh. 1976, our school put on a celebration with music, drama, and dance to honor the bicentennial celebration 200 years earlier, which happened to be 1776. It never occurred to me how celebrating the 4th of July then might be complicated for Native Americans. Celebrating independence and freedom came at a great cost for Indigenous peoples who were already here. As we continue to mature in our lives and in our faith, hopefully we are able to hold multiple views and perspectives. Yes? Today, we will hold some of the diverse perspectives of the Native American community. It is important as people of faith to understand the implications of Supreme Court decisions, not only those that are being made today, but also those that were made in our history as a nation. Whether the decisions are leaning toward the moral arc of justice, or whether they were made to take away the rights of the people or certain people. What a powerful reading from the Gospel of Matthew, what we know of as the Beatitudes from Matthew chapter 5, the Sermon on the Mount. Indeed, Creator's blessing rests on the ones who walk a trail of tears, for God will wipe the tears from their eyes. I don't know how I made it to 50 years old before I really heard of or understood the ramifications of the doctrine of discovery. It was not taught in high school history. I don't believe I learned it in college. I don't think I really learned about it until 5 or so years ago. Was my head in the sand? I just wasn't aware. The doctrine of discovery was infused into American law with the 1823 United States Supreme Court decision ruling that American Indians do not own land in the case of Johnson versus McIntosh. Chief Justice John Marshall, writing for the unanimous court, stated that Christian European nations had assumed ultimate dominion over the lands of America during the age of discovery, and that such discovery meant that the North American Indians had lost their rights to complete sovereignty as independent nations and only retained a right of occupancy in their lands. According to Marshall, when the United States became independent in 1776, it retained the British right of discovery and also acquired Britain's power of dominion. In other words, Indigenous nations were subject to the ultimate authority of the First Nation of Christendom to claim possession of Indigenous peoples' lands. It is good for us to know our history and to reflect on it. In 2013, the Smithsonian Museum wrote an article titled, "Do American Indians Celebrate the 4th of July?" History tells us, the Smithsonian Museum writes, that as the American non-Indian population started to increase with expansion and immigration, the Indigenous population greatly decreased, along with their homelands and cultural freedoms. From the beginning, the United States government policy contributed to loss of culture and land. In the 1880s, Secretary of the Interior Henry Teller developed the Religious Crimes Code with regulations prohibiting American Indian ceremonial life. Indian agents were to end tribal dances, feasts, and ceremonies, and destroyed or confiscated sacred objects. Indian ceremonial activities were prohibited under threat of imprisonment and the withholding of treaty rations. These regulations were issued in 1884, 1894, and 1904. Indian superintendents and agents implemented the code until the mid-1930s. During this 50-year period, Indian spiritual ceremonies such as the sun dance and ghost dance were held in secret or ceased to exist. Some have since been revived or reintroduced by Indian tribes. In response to policies of cultural and religious suppression, some tribes saw 4th of July celebrations as an opportunity to hold their own ceremonies. Agents justified allowing reservations to conduct ceremonies on the 4th of July, and only the 4th of July, as a way for Indians to learn patriotism to the United States and to celebrate its ideals. That history is why a disproportionate number of American Indian tribal gatherings take place on or near the 4th of July and are often the highlight of the year. Over time, these cultural ceremonies became tribal homecomings. American Indian veterans were welcomed home as modern-day warriors. The Navajo tribe of Arizona and Pawnee of Oklahoma are two examples of tribes that use the 4th of July as an occasion to honor their tribal veterans. Today, tribes hold ceremonies and celebrations on or near Independence Day for different reasons. Some American Indians do not celebrate the 4th of July because of negative consequences to Indian people throughout history, while others get together with cookouts and fireworks, which sounds very familiar to my ears. Every few years, the Smithsonian Museum updates this story, and the Smithsonian has invited Native voices to offer reflections about how they intend to celebrate the 4th of July. I want to offer a few of the reflections of American Indians Actually, there are 18 if anyone wants to tick them off. There were about 10 pages. I narrowed it down to 3. Angie said, too many. So I narrowed down to 2 pages of reflections that we are going to hear in different voices. And so I'm going to invite the readers who are going to be in the chancel to come forward to read and offer these reflections. And for our cameraman, we're going to start with the reflections in the choir loft, 3 reflections here, 6 reflections in the chancel area at the lectern, 3 reflections here, and 6 more in the chancel. Let us listen to the variety of how some Native peoples do or do not celebrate the 4th of July.
From Webster, Massachusetts. Independence Day carries many significant meanings to my family. During the time when natives could be arrested or worse for practicing ceremonies and dances, the 4th of July was an opportunity to do those things. Many Indigenous people were able to practice certain ceremonies under the guise of celebrating Independence Day. I have at least 3 ancestors who fought in the Revolutionary War. Without the support of Indigenous people, America would have never come to be. Independence Day is a bittersweet reminder of our sacrifice and loss, but also the bravery and tenacity that gave our ancestors the impetus to find a way to keep our culture alive.
From Alexandria, Virginia. My tribe celebrates our annual Lumbee homecoming the week of July 4. All my relatives attend for a barbecue. There will be drumming and we'll dance. I like to bring old pictures of our Native ancestors to share with my nieces and nephews. They enjoy hearing how their 85-year-old Tuscarora grandmother grew up attending a longhouse for ceremonies and how her family received federal recognition in 1936, were terminated in 1970, and gained federal recognition again in 1973.
From Anadarko, Oklahoma. On July 4th, 1967, I was in Vietnam. I just wanted to be in Oklahoma. It's like a homecoming for Kiowa people around Carnegie. Like the summer solstice, the beginning of a new year, a renewal of traditions, friendships, a happy time. I always try to be in Carnegie at the annual Kiowa Gourd Clan Dance and Sundance. My roots are deeply embedded in home, family, and traditions.
My family acknowledges the sacrifices the military has made for this country, even though the country has been built on unsavory deeds. We clean the graves, plant flowers, pray. We are going to the Veterans Hospital to talk about local Native culture with the vets.
From Chicago, Illinois. It used to be while I was working at the American Indian Center, we were always asked to walk in parades and do dance performances, but I never celebrated the 4th of July.
From Omak, Washington. The Nespelem celebration was originally a defiant ruse by Chief Joseph. He'd returned from Oklahoma where he saw the first powwows. The Army banned any tribal meetings and gatherings at Colville. So the people came up with the idea of fooling the United States into thinking we were celebrating America's holiday. Well, it worked. Indians came. It's been held ever since. Now it's the week after 4th of July, so we don't have to compete with all the casino-sponsored powwows.
Pueblo, New Mexico. As much turmoil the United States government has given our people in the past and present, my father instilled in my family a sense of loyalty, liberty, and responsibility for our country. As a Vietnam veteran, he chose to defend the country and the land of the Indigenous Americans, despite the treatment he and other Vietnam veterans received upon their return. Instead, he raised his children and grandchildren to respect the country. We will honor the veterans on this day.
And from Santa Fe, New Mexico, we choose to get married on the day of the 4th of July. Having our anniversary on that day makes a special day about love, the continuity of my Cherokee family and the families of all cultures. All cultures we've married over the generations. It adds nuance to a day that could be just about patriotism and blowing things up. However, we get to spend the day with our family and friends who believe in the importance of journeying together in peace and equality. And yes, we get fireworks too.
From Taos, New Mexico. Taos is a very close-knit community. Many citizens served in America's military in heartfelt belief that they were protecting our nation. One of the honored tribal elders, Tony Reyna, 97, survived the Bataan Death March during World War II. We celebrate the 4th of July with parades and fireworks, but we also remember World War II, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and the sacrifices made.
We celebrate every 4th by attending the Kiowa Gourd Dance celebration, camping and visiting my Kiowa people, and listening to the beautiful Kiowa songs. For 3 days, we are in Kiowa heaven. Now my parents have gone on, but we will continue to celebrate.
From Oklahoma City, the 4th of July represents freedom in the USA. Freedom to continue to worship the Creator. Freedom to dance my prayers. Freedom to sweat. Freedom to rise early and pray the day in and be up late to pray the day out. We, the host people, celebrate the 4th of July every day.
From Shawnee, Oklahoma. No, I do not celebrate Independence Day, simply because the Declaration of Independence labels my people our enemies, the merciless savages of our frontiers. The colonists were already calling the frontiers ours when the land was not theirs. Because I do not celebrate Independence Day does not mean I am not proud of our Native American veterans and soldiers. I am very proud of the fact almost all Native American families have a family member who is a veteran.
I am Kiowa, Delaware, Shawnee. My mom is a Kiowa Comanche. My uncle and my stepdad are veterans, as many of my other relatives are. My Delaware grandma always said, "This is not our holiday." She said, "I will mourn this day." She would wear a black dress that day.
From the pueblos of Acoma and Laguna, New Mexico. I celebrate the 4th of July, and I do so proudly. When you've been lucky enough to travel and see life in other places, you come to appreciate the home and land you live on. Maybe I'm not as bitter as some of my other indigenous siblings because my tribes were not relocated and have been lucky to remain on ancestral land. Our Pueblo people fought against the Spanish in the Pueblo Revolt, but also learned to harmonize with the Catholic Church. Many years, even centuries of healing have taken place to get us to this point. By celebrating the 4th of July, I feel I am honoring that healing my Pueblo ancestors have prayed for.
The Navajo Nation, Sawmill, Arizona. I recognize that the U.S. declared its independence on that day, but Native people weren't a part of their envisioned emancipation. Native people recognized our independence through our prayers and practicing our traditions. We didn't need a special day to mark our freedom. So on the 4th of July, I will practice my American heritage and celebrate this country's Independence Day. But my heart knows I don't need a day to recognize my autonomy.
Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. I think of the 4th of July as American Ideals Day. If the Americans would live up to its own stated ideals, none of what happened to American Indian people would have happened. Today, if those ideals were finally accepted and acted upon, American Indian sovereignty would be fully recognized and the treaties would be kept intact.
And from Pawnee, Oklahoma. It's a day to celebrate all our Native men and women who served in the armed forces of the United States of America. They are the Native men called the Code Talkers, without whose tribal language World War II might have been lost. To honor the fallen ones who sacrificed their lives for us, and the veterans who are buried in our tribal cemeteries and overseas. To honor my daughter in the U.S. Army, a proud Native American woman who is serving our country.
Red Cloud Indian School, Pine Ridge, South Dakota. It is a sad time, thinking of all the treaties never honored. I try to hold my children and grandkids near and invite others who are alone or ill or elderly to eat lots of food that I cook until I'm very tired. And thank the Creator for another wonderful day.
These reflections are just a few of the ones that have been collected by the Smithsonian Museum, and I am thankful to the Smithsonian for offering these to us and for our readers to bring them forth. Let us come now together in prayer, recognizing brokenness suffered, wounds not yet healed, and our hope for peace and restoration. O great Spirit, God of all people and every tribe, through whom all people are related, call us to the kinship of all your people. Grant us vision to see through the lens of justice the brokenness of the past. Help us to listen to you and to one another in order to heal the wounds of the present. And give us courage, patience, and wisdom to work together for healing and hope with all of your people now and in the future. Mend the hoop of our hearts and let us live in justice and peace through Jesus Christ, the one who comes to all people, that we might live in dignity. Aho. Amen. Our prayer hymn is found in the red United Methodist hymnal. This is my song, number 437, verses 1 and 2. On the Sunday closest to the 4th of July, this hymn will always appear in our worship while I am the pastor. Let us rise and sing.